And all I really think about is, when will you be mine? Don't you get trapped inside your thoughts, trying so hard to guess the plot? Cause when we meet, you'll see the wait was really worth it. I would wait forever, cause I got faith, it's just a matter of time. All of the nights without you, I will just keep on waiting, waiting for you. For you. Waiting for you. All you really gotta do is keep me on your mind. Just keep me on your mind. And all we really gotta do is not give up. I would wait forever, cause I got faith, it's just a matter of time. All of the nights without you, I will just keep on waiting, waiting for you.
When we look back into the sun, this ethereal light that we left will not burn out. While to where we run, in the time that we had, it was worth it to know that this is not the end. It's just a part of the puzzle, the piece that is way too. This is not the end. It's just a split in the pathway of fate. Take a new trail.
Tinsley sends it to the outside. He can't get there. Kevin King is going to win the Bar Bissell FTF Cup Series. Able to the lead.
Glen gets wrecked in front of the pack. He saves it. 3-4 wide as they come to the white flag.
Here comes Vargas down on the apron. They are 5 wide. Ian Plash will win it at the line. Is this package? Oh, there goes Jordy Lopez Jr. That's your race leader. Caution flag is out.
Still no one willing to give up as they are going to be dead even off of the first chicane.
Oh, he saves it. What's going to happen here?
Here comes the canvas. Get your front there.
He's got it. He's got it. Get there. No.
This is going to win.
If you were to create a North American pantheon of racetracks, Watkins Glen would no doubt be included. Among some of the earliest purpose-built road courses on the continent, it's built up decades of history and seen just about every major series set foot there. And the icing on the cake? It's among the fastest and most challenging the drivers will face. Let's see who can drive a lap of the gods as we get ready to watch Round 8 of the Autobahn Sportscar Challenge. And you'll see it all live here on FTF.gg. Hi, I'm Joe Peak, and with me in the booth is Michael Johnson and Joey Atterbury. Behind the scenes is our director, Zach Johnson. And Michael, this place always seems to be a popular one over the years, both in real life and here in the sim, but it provides its own unique challenges in most races.
Once again, you have a gift for understating things. Yeah, challenge. This course, I think people look at it and think, well, there's not much to it. I mean, you've got kind of this easy 90-degree right-hander for your first corner, but there's a ton of banking in there, and if you really hit it right, you can fly through the S's all the way up to the bus stop there, and then the trick comes into getting out of the bus stop unscathed, because it stacks up a little bit at the beginning of the race, and then you got to get into that long carousel to come around. Then you get into the fun part. I love getting into the whole new set. Well, it's not that new anymore, but the new section down into the boot and getting around the toe, because you've got this nice uphill climb again with a ton of camber to help kind of sling you around there, and getting back out onto the old track and running through that penultimate corner. Penultimate corner is honestly one of my favorite corners in all of racing, but where we're going to see some action, honestly, heading into the bus stop, sometimes called inner loop, and I think also trying to get up into that first corner. You may see a little bit there, but be on the lookout for some really fun action all over this track.
Yeah, it tends to put on an exciting show no matter who winds up here. Now, as they start to grid up, let's take a quick look at the championship, starting with the prototypes. Nathan Olson is leading the way. He's been massively consistent, taking podiums every single round he's run, which is all the rounds so far. So he's got 7 straight podiums this season. Billy Smith is going to have to start beating him on the track for the remainder of the rounds if he hopes to have a shot at the championship here. Kundinger at times is fast on his day, but again, has been a bit inconsistent. We'll see whether or not they can become major players trying to challenge Olsen, but right now it's looking like Nathan has a pretty good shot at taking the championship. If we go over to the GT Pros, it is Ross Booth who is playing that role of Nathan's, as he has jumped ahead of most of them. Only had one finish off of the podium so far out of this season for him. Nathan Jew has been pretty quick recently and has started to win races. Will he be able to maybe catch back up to Booth in time before this is over? Johan Shirazi as well. At times fast, but lacks the consistency that we see of Booth in that pro class. There's the GTMs, which finally saw its first 2-time winner this season in the form of Robert Rattray. But he's 35 points behind Nicholas Davis, and this is going to be a running theme, but consistency has been paying huge dividends, and that's exactly why Nick Davis is up at the top right now. Luke Schmidt, though, is making it the closest race out of the 3 classes so far, only 29 points back. That's still a pretty good gap, even at this stage of the season. So he's going to have to work hard if he hopes to get up there. We'll see if Rattray can keep up his pace and manage to take a few more throughout. But Joey, we get ready for this one to start as the cars grid up, and I am just hugely looking forward because this draft track always seems to put on an incredible show.
And well, especially with this car combination of LMP2s plus GT3s out there, it's just a really good fit for this racetrack. There's lots of drafting opportunities, like you said, but it gets really narrow up through the S's, like Michael was saying, and always going through the bus stop is curious on where people are going to place the car, because nowadays these cars are so dang fast, the brake zone is very, very small, so you got to be pretty aggressive in launching the car kind of up and over the curbs and through that section. And I'm just can't wait to see what it is, because it looks like we've got 45, almost 50 cars, and that is going to mean a busy racetrack when they start stepping on top of each other going through the different classes.
Absolutely. You're right. 45 have signed up here today and qualified. In fact, they are gridded up and going through the driver's briefing, if you will. So, Joey, let's go through the LMP2 class.
Yeah, they're on pole. Robert Tinsey in the number 82 machine going to be guiding this field to the green flag. Joining him on the front row is Nate Gruchelski. Carter Kundinger there in the 3rd spot. Thomas Fisher 4th. Nikhil Kopkar inside the top 5. David Shutt there in 6th. Paul Gibson 7th. Mo Islam. Billy Smith and Dominic Dorenberg there inside the top 10. Nathan Olson 11th. Peter Houston 12th. Leif Peterson 13th. Eddie Layton in 14th. And Chris Sherburne rounds out all 15 of the LMP2 cars that are going to be taking today's green flag.
From there, Ross Booth is on the pole for the GT Pros with Wayne Castile starting in 2nd. It'll be Young Park in the 3rd position, followed by Ryan Robertson in 4th. Robert Cast starts 5th, and 6th is Johan Sarazi. Then it's Eric Thomas starting 7th, and Chris Pies is the last one before we get to the first of our AMs, with Franco Margarella on the pole for the AM class today. And remember, they are the same style of cars. There's no difference between the AM and the Pro. It's all down to driver licensing. Bradley Haley will start 10th out of the GTs, with Cameron Bidwell in 11th. From there, you get to Corey Ensing, the next one down in the AM, starting 2nd in that class. Nathan Ju, all the way down 13th out of all the GTs. He's got a lot of work to do to try and work his way forward. Then it's Shane Hunter starting 14th and 30th overall, but 15th in the GTs is Robert Rattray here. Michael?
Yeah, picking up from there, Luke Schmidt is leading up the next row alongside Matthew Gosch. Nick Olas alongside with Tommy Ryan. Jimbo Pfeiffer and Andrew Lunsford are going to take up row 18. On row 19, Patrick McDaniel with Dale Green. And then row 20, Sheldon Rosenbaum and Scott Angelo. And I think that was the first Audi that I saw there. Jason Iverson in a BMW alongside Chad Nobles in another Audi. Then we've got Trent Brown, Sean Reese, and Nick Davis rounding out the field in that Porsche.
Nick Davis, remember, is trying to catch up for that AM championship, so him starting from the very back of the field is going to hurt today, and he'll have to make up for that. I believe that may have been from a penalty. I'll need to double check on the information on that, but he did not set
from wisdom too.
Well, that's true.
This could get pretty dicey in that turn 1.
And he didn't set a qualifying time, so it does look like that may have been something that he did on purpose. And I'm double checking. Yeah, he did not get out for a lap out there. So I think that was intentional, regardless that he is not on our qualifying board and is going to have to start from the back of the field. And Joey, this is where I'm expecting a lot of that action to take place today, here through the inner loop.
Yes, this is always one of the action spots at Watkins Glen, but honestly, Joe, with cold tires and all these Porsches in the GT field, I'm curious to see how the GT drivers navigate up through the S's for the first time, because they got to make it to the inner loop first.
Yeah, that's a good point. We've seen track blockages at this place coming up through the S's before. So, mainly, though, I think the big issue is probably going to be once they start getting the traffic coming through the first time, and the LMP2s having to weave their way past the worst of the GT traffic. But now down into the boot. I also wonder, since this is a 90-minute race, so normally they do 60 minutes here, Michael, what this is going to mean for the tires as well, because it's a little warm on the track at 98 Fahrenheit on the surface.
Well, that's a lot of heat to be putting into these virtual tires. And with the new tire model, both of these cars have that new tire model on them that generally last only about an hour. In real life and in the previous tire model, you could probably double stint, maybe even triple stint a set of tires. But 90 minutes is a long way to go on a track like this, where you're really putting a lot of heavy downforce into the car through these twisty back and forth sections. And there's a lot of scrub that happens too. Heavy brake zones, a lot of camber going into a lot of places. So I think tire wear could be an issue for some of these guys.
All right, we'll see who's got the right strategy then on that one, who can keep the tires in good condition all the way to the end. And Robert Tenzi, how about Bob the Blade finally getting back up to the front? We've made such a big deal about how we've been shocked the LMP2 has not seemed to suit him. It does here as he's starting from pole. And there goes the Porsche pace car diving in. Robert has control of the fields, and he goes almost immediately as they get on the green flag. Someone almost looks like they made a jump start a bit in the back and had to check up so that they didn't get a penalty. But as they fly down into the 90, will we make it out of there clean? Or who is going to have to take to the runoff? It looks like most of them are going to manage to stay on the track. And as they fly into the S's, it looks like we're through. Let's go to Michael with the GTs.
As Ross Booth decides to make short work of this, hey guys, I'm taking off, getting out of here. Looks like almost 3 wide, backing out just a little bit. Now we were talking about it. The Porsche's trying to get through here. Wow, this is going to be fun. We got 3 of them up front being chased by a Ferrari as they work their way up through the S's. Now it's going to be interesting to see what happens when they get into this first big heavy braking zone on these gold tires.
And we've had an issue with Robert Tenzi. He's off the track and in last place. I'm not sure what happened, but it seems to have been out of the inner loop, and then I saw a bunch of smoke as we cut away, and we did wind up having a problem in the GT cars through the S's.
Yeah, it looks like we got one of the McLaren is flipped around backwards there. Not a good place for it to be. We usually like to see those things spit and fire, but yeah, not going to do that. Trying to turn it around in an Austin Powers style.
Yeah, so that happened in the mid-pack. Jimbo Pfeiffer somehow getting turned around. Wonder if that was cold tires. We'll take a look at that a little bit later. So Gruchelski took the lead before Robert Tenzi had whatever happened to him, and is now up about a second ahead of Kundinger with the first lap being completed. And Tenzi goes from first to last, literally, on the first lap.
I tell you what, the big mover in LMP2 right now is actually Nathan Olson in 6th place, but you're right, Nate Gruchelski leading Carter Kundinger and Nikhil Kopkar and Joe to report on the incident with Robert Tenzi. It looks like just a self-spin. The tires are really cold on the first lap, and you go bouncing over the curbs. The car isn't ready for it yet.
We'll try and check in on that with a replay a little bit later, but here you see Nate leading the way with Kundinger still about that 1 second back and trailing, trying to play catch up. I can tell you that Jimbo Pfeiffer is still running, but I think his car is a little damaged from it. He's also in last place down there. Continuing to watch these prototypes put in this second lap now through the boot of the course. And wonder if we've got some time, because it does look like it has calmed down. If we can take a glance at those 2 incidents. Let's see which one we're starting with first. Yeah, here is what happened with Bob the Blade, and there is what Joey was talking about. Car just goes around, and someone had to go way around to avoid him. I think that was his teammate.
Thomas Fisher in the 47 it was.
Oh, man. Just a horrible day for them. Oh, and things started spinning early for Jimbo Pfeiffer, and then he never fully recovered. That could have been a much bigger accident. Great heads up on everybody's part to check up in that.
Yeah, I got to give major props to the back of the field there. Usually what you find, especially in some more lower level racing, these guys actually have it all together. They're doing a great job. But what you see a lot of times is, oh, I'm at the back of the field. I've got to get to the front right away. No, take your time, keep your head up, look ahead, and there's the easiest pass you're going to make all night long.
Absolutely. A bunch of drivers +1 from that one. And poor Jimbo Pfeiffer, -10, unfortunately. Back to live pictures. We're on lap 3. Gruchelski up to about 1.2, so slowly pulling away from Carter. But it's early days, and we could see the complexion change as this goes on. Tinsley's already managed to pass Chris Sherburne and is trying to catch up to the field. So I think with him managing not to hit anything, he's doing his best to make up for that critical error.
We have to remember that this race is an hour and a half, I believe, so there's plenty of time to make your way back up, and he didn't get buried into the GT traffic, so you're right, Joe. His race is still out there, no damage, just regather yourself and get back going.
We need to check and see what's been happening with Cop Car here, because I don't recall seeing him being up towards the front much in these prototypes, but right now he's sitting in third. And certainly putting some pressure on in the background there on Carter Kundinger. So could possibly manage to get himself a P2 if he plays this savvy. But then I kind of wonder as well, Joey, with these LMP2s punching such a big hole in the air, is it worth it to try and play some fuel games with this being a longer race?
Oh, well, that's actually a really good point. And if you're going to start playing those fuel games, you got to start it right now. You can't do it halfway through. And to give you some info on Nikhil is actually a very, very fast driver, and he's pretty aggressive out there. I'm not surprised at seeing him so far towards the front. And you actually look, P3, P4, P5 in LMP2 is all one team. That's the PG-13 team. And so they're lined up pretty good and standing pretty stout in LMP2 currently.
Yeah, I got a nice little battle here for that 5th spot between Gibson and Nathan Olson. Nathan trying to make up for disappointing qualifying, no doubt, starting from 11th on the grid and picking his way past a number of cars very early on. But has it stalled out here? Is he now having trouble with Gibson in front of him?
And Gibson's a pretty savvy LMP2 guy. He's really good with the car setup, but look at Nathan Olson. He's up 5 positions, our biggest mover in LMP2, and you got to think there's a lot of speed inside that number 32 car.
Certainly, as he continues to hassle that number 31 machine coming off of the tricky turn 9. You can see how little runoff there is out of that spot as it returns to the main circuit. And then you get a little bit more runoff here in the modern paved part of it, and once again back into tight confines on almost a street course like final corner with the wall right at the exit. Not a good enough run down to the 90, but maybe he's waiting here for the backstretch. He's very good on the brakes, I must say, gaining a ton of time on Gibson.
Well, and this is what it's all about right here, is getting in the tow, staying in the slipstream. If you get close enough going into the bus stop, make a move, which it certainly looks like Nathan Olson has a great run. He's going out driver's right. This is the time.
And they're catching up to David Shutt as well. Could he get a 2 for 1? Not quite. Big blink from David, which has got to be disconcerting slightly. But textbook move there from the 32. And now he sets his sights on David. Sounds like we've had some action down for 4th, 5th, and 6th there, Michael.
Yeah, it looks like in the GT3 field, in the GT3 Pro, Johan Shirazi is really putting some good pressure on Robertson. Robertson in that Ferrari 488 with Shirazi in that Porsche, just trying to sneak up on him. He keeps closing it up, and then just a mild little error. So it's the difference between 99.9% driving and 100% driving here, or maybe it's 100.1 and 100. I'm not sure which way that one's going.
Well, he's got a good run here. Could we see these positions change around this time as they head out of the S's onto the back stretch? Shirazi hunting Robertson. No, just doesn't have the top speed. Looks like that Porsche is mighty quick, or excuse me, the Ferrari is mighty quick in a straight line today. In fact, he's catching right up to Young Park, looking for 3rd and has to back out of it through the carousel.
Yeah, Young Park is actually putting a big giant hole in the air for that Ferrari. I think that is actually Robertson's saving grace here. If he didn't have that draft available to him, I'm pretty sure this other Porsche would be going right by him into that braking zone.
Whoa, we got a problem. That looks like Pfeiffer once again coming out of turn 1 and seems to have found the barriers this time in that corner. Oh, things are getting frantic, though, in the LMP2s. We got to go back up to Gibson, Schutt, and Olsen. Billy Smith is now involved. They caught up to a lapped GT car, and that has checked all of them up to where they are scrunched together, and I think Schutt might be in danger of losing this 4th place.
And David Schutt is typically a GT driver. He finds himself in the LMP2 here today at Watkins Glen, and I think he's still getting up to speed. You see the 3 cars stacked up, Paul Gibson, Nathan Olsen, and Billy Smith. And Joe, you named it. They're starting to go through the GT traffic, and it's causing this accordion effect.
Gibson got so close there, but just couldn't get the job done. Behind them, Olsen and Smith thinking about maybe trying to change positions. Remember, Olsen was ahead of Gibson not long ago and has lost the position back pretty quickly. He was on the re-attack and managed to overtake him once again as we come back onto the front stretch. Yeah, there's the leaders ahead of them getting into the thick of the GT traffic.
Well, and Nikhil almost got by Carter that last lap too, just being held up by a GT car. But here we go, up the S's. This is where it starts to get really nervous with the closing rate between the 2 classes, as you see probably 15 plus miles an hour between the 2.
It looks like they timed it pretty well this time, not having to weave past them too much with uncertainty, and they clear the majority of them before they reach the inner loop, but not so for the pack behind them. Looks like Schutt was able to rebuff Nathan Olsen, but just barely.
There was a little bit of contact between Paul Gibson and Nathan Olsen as they went through the bus stop, and here comes Billy Smith really late on the brakes, going down into the laces of the boot. Doesn't get the job done, but these 5 prototypes are just stacked so closely together. When one makes a lunge, it opens the door for the next.
This goes all the way down to Islam as, there was a car off in the background. I think that was Sheldon Rosenbaum. Not sure if he had any help, but he went off at the toe of the boot and found the wall.
And now we're trying to get too wide through there. That's not one of my favorite places to go too wide, but it can open up some opportunities because you're taking someone off of their preferred line. When you get out there just a little bit and you stick that nose in there, it makes it interesting to see where they're going to try to place the car and how they're going to pinch the other driver coming up into the next corner.
Olsen showing why he is leading this championship. 2 spots in 1 lap, and he's up to 4th now. Amazingly, as I was alluding to earlier, this goes down to 8th position with Mo Islam back there. He's trying desperately to cling to this group. He had his best finish of the season back at Montreal with 4th.
And I can't wait to see here. He's got some clean air finally. He's freed from these PG-13 cars. And in fact, here comes Billy Smith taking a look around the outside of Paul Gibson, going into the bus stop, a braking duel. Billy leaves plenty of room. Really good move around the outside.
Wonderful stuff from the 901. That's going to get him into 6th place. Seems like it's been going wrong for Paul Gibson, although he's actually only back down to where he started this race. So he actually just had a really good beginning, few laps, and then unfortunately seems to have fallen victim to some of the traffic. As speaking of which, David Schutt seeing if he could re-overtake Olsen, but unfortunately gets a little bit balked.
I think that's going to be the name of the game through, what is it? What did we say? 30 GT cars? It's going to be non-stop today, Joe. If you get a little bit of breathing room, don't worry. Just wait a couple corners.
Absolutely, especially considering how long some of these turns are. It's your chances of catching them in the corners are going to be pretty high around this track. As we got an off, trying to make out who that is. Eddie Layton, it looks like.
I have to go back and look. I'm sorry to interrupt there, but it looks like just on the brakes, trying to get around some GT cars and just a little bit of contact. It's tough when you're have the 2 classes going in the same spot on the racetrack.
And dealing with class differences, and you talked about it just a little bit ago with that 15 mile per hour difference. It is really tough, depending on which class you're in. Sometimes you have to work with what you got, and hopefully you can set a pick for the guy that you're racing behind you, but sometimes that pick gets set on you.
Oh, that was Gruchelski we saw off. This is Billy Smith trying to see if he can overtake David Schutt, but Schutt puts Luke Schmidt in between them in the meantime, and that separates them by a huge chunk. Now Gruchelski trying to recover. I'm trying to figure out, Nate was leading, actually. That was our leader.
Correct. That was our LMP2 overall leader getting caught up with Franco Margarella, a GT car, on the exit of turn 1. We're getting the replay here. Look at the BMW in front, lose it, collects the LMP2.
Oh. And I think that was at least our pole sitter for the AM class.
Yeah, that was leader for leader. Margarella was leading the AM class.
Oh, man. Frustrating for both parties, and that means that Corey Ensing is now leading the AM class in the GTs. There you can see him on screen, just having to keep his head on a swivel, getting chopped off in front of him. Mo Islam having to back out big time on Nathan Jew.
Yeah, blink and you'll miss it. There is so much action going on right now, especially with the overlap we have in the field. The LMPs have gotten about halfway through the GT field now, and I think we're going to get a break here in a little bit once it opens back up. There'll be a little bit with the people who've had spins or whatever, but I think for the most part, we're about done with all the first level insanity. Hopefully next time they start working their way through though, we'll find a little better behavior among the drivers.
But this man, Carter Kundinger, who we've now switched away from, is leading the LMP2, so he's certainly enjoying that. But he's got Nikhil directly on his heels currently, and he's going to try and pressurize him into a mistake somewhere. But as was said, they've gotten through pretty much all of the GT cars for the first time, and each time they reach them, they're going to be hopefully that little bit more separated. At least if you're Carter Kundinger, you hope that.
And this will be a good test of speed right here, because they might have a lap or two of clean air before they run into the back of the GT field again. And Nikhil Kopkar has been all over the back of the O2 through the traffic and has had a couple opportunities and has chosen not to make the move. Now we're going to see who is faster, which car has the good setup underneath it. Oh, big loose moment from Nikhil.
He's going to need it, because right now, Carter's been on a bit of a tear. He's had back-to-back podiums with a first and a third, and even before that, he had a fourth place in there. He's really kind of got into his groove in these prototypes and seems to not only be able to be fast when he needs to, but clean, because that's what got him the lead so far here.
Oh, it looks like, can we take a look over into that Shirazi-Robertson battle? Looks like Shirazi has gotten around. There was a little bit of contact. Hopefully we can get a replay of that in a moment, but there's some other exciting action going on up front. But that right there you see is Robertson trying to fight back. So it wasn't too much of a collision. It was just a little bit of getting loose with some traffic around, a little bit too much grass underneath the tire there.
This is all for fourth right now for the GT Pros, with Shirazi holding the desired position. Robertson looking around the outside. Can he make this stick? He's going to have to brake very deep. It's possible. And no, he's going to give it up, and he allows Johan to go back through. Behind them, Robert Cast and Eric Thomas have now joined the party.
Yeah, it's getting to be a little bit crowded in this party, because these guys were trying to run on their own, but looks like Cast and Thomas have decided they want to be part of this fun, and I think this is going to be an interesting race to watch. We've got a Porsche, followed by a Ferrari, followed by another Porsche, followed by a BMW. So we're kind of getting everybody else in here, and I think that is an Audi behind them. Yeah, sure is. Yeah, so we're getting all the manufacturers here just trying to line up and fight for this P4.
Don't need to go to a replay, but the 95 of Patrick McDaniel has gone off at the first corner, so he is now farther down the fields, and he's currently racing in the AM class back there. But we keep eyes on this fight coming out of the boot, continuing to be led by Shirazi, and now putting distance between himself and Robertson. Cast creeping ever closer, though. It'll be Porsche versus Ferrari here in a moment, if he can just reach that tailgate.
Maybe they should make a movie about that one. I mean, the Ford Ferrari was a good one, but I'd like to see a Porsche Ferrari movie at some point.
It'd certainly be interesting as they come off of the 90. That was a bad exit, though, there from Robertson, and Cast is now right on top of that rear wing. But I'm not sure if he's got the run here, Michael. Almost looks like he caught him too quickly.
This Ferrari's got some legs. Now, one thing that happens with the Ferrari here is they're able to choose a different gearbox. The Porsche is stuck with its gearbox, but these Ferraris, they have an option in their setup where they can use a different gearing. And whoa, there he goes. He gets wiggly coming out of the bus stop. That's going to allow Cass to close it up. Getting wiggly again. Cass takes him down into the inside, gets on around him. It looks like somebody may be using a little bit too much of their tires.
And it's very early for that, as Eric Thomas has the door shut on him, unfortunately, because Robertson not willing to give up 2 positions. Although another big peek down to the inside, Thomas wants to let him know he's there as they start to encounter more of our LMP2s that have caught problems and are reaching the party late.
I think that's Chris Sherburne right there in the white and red prototype. Always pretty respectful out on the racetrack and leaving these GTs some extra room. Doesn't want to get caught up in them, and that's some great sportsmanship on the racetrack.
Yeah, just trying to give enough space. Robertson holds off Thomas, but seems like Chris Sherburne sitting in 14th. Just behind Robert Tinsey has Eddie Layton vying for the last spot on the field of our LMP2s. In fact, he's got a very good run as we switch over to a fierce battle coming out of the inner loop. And in fact, that is Gruchelski, our former leader, chasing Billy Smith. Smith weaving back and forth, just kind of drifting over to the racing line to deny a clear-cut opportunity for Gruchelski.
I've been watching this battle, Joe, and it's really been David Shutt that's kind of the cork in the bottle right now. I think both Billy Smith and Nate Gruchelski have a little bit more speed, but David Shutt has placed his car in the perfect spot going into the bus stop the last 2 laps and just doesn't give a passing opportunity for these 2 cars behind him.
Little off the apex and a big slide for Billy Smith, but that's not going to be a long enough straight for Gruchelski to pounce on it. Still, we're seeing errors all over the place in this LMP2 field today, which is starting to become a bit of a trend here, Joey, because we've now seen 2 leaders throw it away from the top spot.
Well, and not only that, but I've been watching Nikhil Kopkar in second place too, and he's driving on the ragged edge up there, just keeping the lap time as fast as he can go. And so it may be an hour and a half of a race, but it certainly seems like a sprint race. Look at this. Once again, Gruchelski all over the back of Billy Smith. This might be the opportunity Nate has to get it done.
He's going to try and find an opening and then make a little bit of contact. He gets out of it and somehow holds on. Gruchelski thought that there was going to be a gap, but that closed, and Billy Smith kept his cool. I can't believe that those cars didn't get tipped around.
Yeah, you know, if you leave the door open, you got to leave it fully open. You can't partially close it there, and I think both of them got really lucky.
Now, can Wayne Castile get lucky as well? Because the battle for the lead in the GT Pros has been hovering about, and it seems like this is going to be the best chance we've seen for Wayne so far as he's got the draft.
Yeah, Wayne had it just under a second going into turn 1, backed out of it just a touch because he knew this was the place he wanted to make the run, but I think he backed out a tiny bit too much, or maybe there's just a little less wing on our leader there with Ross Booth. Hard to say, but now we'll find out shortly as they head into the boot. When we watch them go through the boot, just a tiny bit extra wing helps a ton through here. So it's on that balance in the car. How do you want to make it work? As we get another LMP2 trying to work his way through, this could give Castile a chance if he's able to capitalize on it and get under that back wing of that LMP2 car.
Doesn't look like he's going to. Yeah, they'll go by both of them. And that actually held up Wayne a little bit. Is there something about these Porsches that just serve this track well? Because right now, the top 5 are all Porsches in the GT Pros.
They're just so fast in iRacing right now. I mean, for those who watched the 24 Hours at Daytona, the real life race, the Porsches weren't doing quite so well. So it's kind of nice to see that it's kind of flipped here on iRacing. But in iRacing, there's been a battle for the BOP on these cars to try to get them to be a little closer to everything else. But honestly, they just have some kind of magic in them that makes them quick. As we watch coming here out of turn one, they've got to hold on 2 tires onto that orange and yellow curbing. Now they put the hammer down and try to work their way through the S's. Now watch, he's closing up ever so slightly, about 1.5 tenths, closing it down just at a tenth of a second, sticks his nose out trying to take a look. This is really more of a head game at this point. Either go faster or get out of my way.
I wonder if Castile is actually maybe saving a little fuel here, because we'll find out soon enough. They've got about 6 minutes left before we can expect, I guess they tend to go a little longer in the GT cars, so maybe more like 10 to 12 minutes before we'll see them start to pit in. Oh, and Nathan Olson is our leader. He got by Carter Kundinger. When did he catch Carter Kundinger?
Well, this is Nathan Olson, not Gruchelski, but also got around Nikhil Kopkar as well. As 3 cars for the lead right now. As you see Carter using the draft, it might go 3 wide. The number 4 has nowhere to go.
He may not have qualified well, but Olson certainly has the race pace side by side, and he's got the bravery under braking to take that lead back. Ahead of him, Trent Brown is going to try and stay plugged to the bottom of the carousel, and thankfully all 3 will be able to navigate past him successfully without incident. But boy, is that a sketchy move there, hoping that he's timed that right with that lapped car.
And it all started with a lapped car, Joe. That's what held up Carter Kundinger initially out of the final turn. Just didn't get the run. That opened the door for Nathan Olson, and he capitalized on it, and looks like he's off to the races.
Indeed. Again, I was a bit shocked he qualified as low as he did, but he's made up for it and then some, as once again, more of the traffic starts to get thicker and thicker, and they aren't really battling, though, I will say, though we have a lot of these GT cars here towards the back of that pack. It looks relatively thinned out, so that'll make the job slightly easier, but no less annoying. And I think, did Kopkar just brush the wall there?
If you did, it might have been a little bit of netcode. I didn't see any contact with the wall, but I mentioned it. Nikhil has been driving on the ragged edge, dipping tires on corner exits and hanging on to the car every lap.
Going back to watch on my screen to see, because he was very wide coming out of there. Oh, yeah, he came about an inch away from it. So he was pushing that and is trying to keep up with these guys. But unfortunately, again, that traffic is not going his way. He'll have to hope that luck turns around until later. So the gap is up to about 2 seconds between himself and P2 at this stage. Still haven't seen much separation in the GT Pro lead, but again, we think that might be some strategy gains from the 333.
Yeah, I want to give a quick shout out, though. We talked at the beginning about Nick Davis, I think it was, hanging back. He was all the way at the back of the field. He is currently up 13 positions. He's fighting his way through the crowd here. And remember, he's in the AM class, so he's been working his way up through the rest of the AM class, and he's trying to knock on the door of the next pro driver ahead of him. A good bit ahead. He's still got some room to make up, but the lap times he's turning right now, that is a distinct possibility.
Yeah, right now, his goal, if he's looking for the AM win, is Corey Insing, who's, let's see, looks like maybe about 15 or 16 seconds up the road, maybe even more than that, frankly. Just definitely has some work to do, but his pace has been good, and he's still got an hour left, so it's not over by any stretch of the imagination as he continues to try to keep Nick Olas behind him. And they get overtaken by Mo Islam, who still remains in 8th in that GT, or in that prototype class. Up the hill they go. Once again, Porsche versus Porsche.
Yeah, these Porsches are just, as usual, running away with it. They get something that works with them in iRacing, and they just go. And right now we're watching, they look so stable through there. Every time we watch these Porsches run through the bus stop, they just look planted to me. They're not bouncing around a lot. When we were watching that battle earlier with the Ferrari, and I think there was a McLaren back in there somewhere, and one of the Audis, they just kind of bounce around. They didn't have that planted look to them. These Porsches, they just kind of lock it down, get into that brake zone, turn the car on with some power and rotate it through there, and it just sails right through.
You know, we were talking a little bit earlier about Nathan Jew being kind of out of place as well. He's made up a lot of spots. He's up 5, but that's still only 8th in his class. So this is going to be maybe a damage limitation type day for him. He's chasing on Eric Thomas for that 7th spot, so he could get another one as we continue to watch our hard charger there. There he is on screen now. He's in the Porsche chasing the BMW of Eric Thomas.
Yeah, and that BMW is kind of a big car. It opens up a really nice hole behind it, makes it easy for this Porsche to get through there. And if we look, there's some nice legs on this Porsche. I think he might try to put the nose in there. Yep, there he goes, trying to get it in there, but no, too wide on the entry to the bus stop. Losing a little bit of time, but closes it right back up as 2 of the prototypes head their way around the outside.
That's for the lead, actually. That's Olsen versus Kundinger right there. And big off into the grass for Nathan Jew. Now he's going to have another chance at it down into the chute. This time he gets it done just as Kopkar goes by.
And that looked a little bit like somebody wanting to stay out of a battle. Yeah, Jew got around, but I think Thomas was like, this is a fight we can have later. We're only looking at an hour left. We are coming right up on the 30-minute mark of this race, 1 hour left. There's plenty of time for these guys to race after they get through their pit stop rotation.
So up to the battle for the lead in the prototypes now as Nathan Olsen picks them off one by one. But again, we've got a battle for the lead just kind of hovering around each other at the top. Who is going to be willing to give way once they reach them? Oh, and pit stops kicking off with Olsen having to brake a little early to not run into Shirazi.
Always tricky entering pit lane here at Watkins Glen, because you got to dive down immediately after the final turn, and if you got a GT that you're not expecting in front, definitely could cost you some time, but we'll see. It's more important to just stop in your box. Oh, we got problems on the racetrack.
Ooh, trying to figure out who that is exactly.
Yeah, a little forced pit stop. They may not have wanted to do it yet.
That was Peter Houston and Thomas Fisher, and to report on them, they were actually in a battle between P9 and P12, and it looks like they're just taking the opportunity to come to pit road after the mistake.
Yeah, all 3 of them had to. I think they got some severe damage. This was warned about. Unfortunately, the bridge kind of blocking our view a little bit, but they were told to be wary of when drivers are pitting in, and that was a clear signal to me that driver was trying to pit in.
Yes, and Michael can sit here and talk with me too, but you have to have the car fully committed to the yellow line. You're allowed a little bit of cheat room, which kind of he was doing, but he just kind of got ran over. And unfortunately, did you see the 3rd car? That was Robert Tinsey, our original pole sitter, just got caught up and into the wall.
Ouch. Oh my goodness. Rob cannot catch a break lately, it seems, as Nick Olis is back out past him. That's the one that you just saw exiting there in the GT car and getting onto the track once again. But Carter Kundinger is going to be pitting in this time himself. Olsen's already pitted, and Carter's going to follow suit. I'm wondering, actually, if this is the extent of the LMP2 class, and we'll see more of them pitting in. No, it's not, actually. Kopkar carried on, and Gruchelski did as well. So maybe they can go a little bit farther, but tend to see them have a bit of a narrow pit window.
And I'm seeing, let's see here, looks like the top 6 currently have yet to pit. So if you ask me, Joe, if I'm a driver with this much GT traffic, if I spot a heavy pack of cars in front of me and I'm within 2 laps, I would actually prefer to come in and take that stop rather than get held up on the racetrack.
Absolutely. It seems like it's going to be about minimizing that time, getting caught up in traffic, kind of like we're seeing here. Castile seen flashing his lights in the mirror as, whoa, almost contact between Booth and Sean Reese. And I don't think, that was not for position. Reese is a lap down, and unusual situation there between the GT cars.
Yeah, getting into the overlap now, where you've got your really fast guys up front starting to catch the people at the back of your field, and it's always frustrating because you don't know where they're fast, you don't know where they're a little bit behind what you've been doing, or maybe they are just as fast. They just had a little incident that happened to them early and got caught up in a bad spin or really bad traffic. But look at this. We've got Wayne Castile in a position we've been seeing him in for quite a while. And there is that commitment to the pit entry that didn't happen. That was right down onto the apron there, letting those guys go by.
Looks like we've hit the end of the fuel window for the LMP2s. Cup Car, Gruchelski, Shutt, Smith, Gibson, they're all in pit lane here, Joey. And it sounds like Cup Car was in a little hot, though.
He came in fully locked up onto the pit road. Have to check out, make sure he didn't speed there. And
he's got a black flag.
I was afraid about that.
Yeah, my screen shows him getting a penalty right now, so you'll see him stay in that pit lane for quite some time, having to serve that. Here's the replay of the entry. Let's see if he locked him up.
And usually they give you a little bit of leniency if you get it over slowed, but just way too hot through the cones.
So this means that Gruchelski and Olsen are going to come out together, actually. And it looks like Gruchelski's going to lead Olsen. So a change for the top spot once again. Not often we see this swap around this much here in the prototypes.
Really interesting that worked out, but here's the draft and the warm tires on Nathan Olsen around the outside of Gruchelski. Easily gets the spot back before diving through the curbs.
I think Gruchelski maybe took his shorter stop because they don't have to be perfectly even stops both times. And Nate was quite a bit quicker in his pit stall that got him the track position. Now that he's here, can he maybe ride the coattails and gain some time slipstreaming behind Olsen? Well, it's not looking like it. Wow, Olsen is just taking off like a rocket.
He is going really fast, hauling the mail through there, and that's actually one of the most fun sections of Watkins Glen. Up through that section, you just kind of lay into the throttle, extra grip coming up the corner, and the additional camber, and oh no, looks like we got an Audi off in that same corner.
He didn't find the grip at all. That was Scott Angelo, and almost looks like he went a little bit straight on, because he was way off. Oh, it was a 4 wide. We need a replay of this. 4 wide. Angelo involved. Andrew Lunsford, David Shutt, and Mo Islam. This is bad decision all over it.
Oh. Yeah, that was a 4 wide that turned into a different 4 wide. And wow, the front of that Audi caught the worst of that one.
Just became a pinball, unfortunately. And bounced off the wall in a bad way as he tries to crawl back forward. But looks like, actually, has he taken his stop yet?
And looks like he's trying to take it now. Let's see. Yeah, he slowed down a lot getting in there.
I would also suspect damage, and you just have to reset as a driver. But actually, Billy Smith, Mo Islam, and David Shutt just tried 3 wide into the bus stop currently. The battle is far from over. And Joe, I wanted to make it a little bit of a deja vu with Dylan Murray taking out a GT car in the IMSA race this past year at Watkins Glen, almost identical in the same corner.
Guess some people did not learn their lesson, unfortunately. Up at the front of this group, Sherburne up to 4th, but he still needs to take a pit stop. Now, wait a minute. How did he get this far in? Nobody else has been anywhere close to this.
Well, real fast, Chris Sherburne is an incredibly respectful race car driver, and he spends a lot of time off the gas, and I just think you're seeing fuel economy difference with his pace versus the front runners.
Oh, wow. He's going to have a very short pit stop. But, he causes a bit of a bobble there. They're going to go side by side as Schutt versus Islam goes the way of David Schutt, the long way around to the penultimate turn. That is not an easy move to make.
David Schutt is one of the more aggressive iRacers out there, and I think that his car might not be the fastest, but he's showing you why he wants to be up front.
Great move up to fourth now, and with Sherburne finally taking his pit stop, we're to an accurate positioning of these drivers, other than whether or not some of them may have taken the short stop, which does look like Mo Islam may have. Meanwhile, it looks like Gruchelski has run Olsen back down. I don't know if this is traffic or if he's picked up the pace.
I think it's a little bit of both. We got to remember that Gruchelski started on the front row. He's not lacking any sort of speed in the car, and it was Nathan Olsen that's driven through the prototype field. So I think the cream has risen to the top, Joe.
Truly has. Gruchelski hot on the heels of Nathan Olsen. Now, we're getting close to the halfway mark of this race. Doesn't mean a whole lot. There's no extra bonus points, but at least we know what to expect for the latter half once we get that out of the way. Braking hard, and look how blind it is up here through turn 9 as they try to spot that apex. And he's been right on top of that number 32. Look at how close he's able to run.
Really impressive, because most of the time you get the aero wash, but here at Watkins Glen, some of the corners aren't too... Oh, did the leader just bang the wall? This is going to open the door for Gruchelski.
Whether or not he did, he's slow off the corner. Gruchelski's going to have the inside, but they're going to break about evenly down through the 90. It's once again a drag race as they head towards the S's. No traffic to speak of in front of them, but it looks like Olsen will hold him off for now.
I love the racing in turn 1 you get here, and here comes the other slipstream. Gruchelski just trying to time it right to get up alongside and make this move. He's going to try around the long way, the outside, a braking duel.
I can confirm as he's going to be able to make it back to the lead. Olsen doing everything he has to hold him off. He did touch the wall, though. And I don't know how much damage is on the left-hand side. These LMP2s are often described as tanks because they can take a real hit and not suffer too much. But this is an aerodynamic-dependent track, so I wouldn't want to test that theory too much.
Definitely not. I don't see any real damage, but however, the whole left side of the car is scuffed up. I don't think it's doing any damage in terms of lap time, but the driver has to stay focused.
Absolutely, and he's going to take a little bit of a risk trying to go by McDaniel, who stays out of the way, but that worked out well for him in the end, both of them managing to get by the GT car just in time. Still waiting on our leader in the GT Pros to pit. Wayne Castile actually making it right now. He's not going to be able to do this on a one-stopper, but he made it a long, long ways.
Indeed, he did. He was saving a lot of fuel, I think. We had talked about it before when he was behind Ross Booth. It looked like he had several opportunities to make that pass, but chose to kind of sit back a little bit and wait. So this is where that comes to play. He gets to put in less fuel at this point, and with 49 minutes left, there's a good chance he's going to make it to the end.
And I'm looking at the pit stop times. A few drivers did take their short stop in the GTs as well on this one. Shirazi in for 23 seconds, Nathan Ju in for 21. Compare that to Ross Booth, who was about 29 seconds stationary. Castile looks like he's going for a long one, as he's up to 27, 28, 29 seconds. So Booth should come out right about at the same time, actually.
Yeah, and also taking a look back there, Johan Shirazi is right now P3 in the GT class, and he's about 3.5 seconds off the back of Ross Booth. Now, how does this play out with Wayne Castile? We need to see what happens with Wayne, as he is currently out of the pits, and
he jumped him.
Looks like he got it. He made it. He's about a half a second up.
So that worked out well, despite having just a slightly longer stop from what I can see. And in fact, longer from cone to cone as well. But look how quickly he has caught up. In fact, it sounded like on the radio he said something to Booth about how he's got cold tires.
Yeah, that's what I was about to say. Is I think his tires are cold. He's trying to get some heat in those. Now, also realize Booth's been out there a couple of laps, so it was a good move on Castile's part to say, "Hey, look, just a little reminder. I've got fresh rubber on here, and I got no heat in it, so I'm going to be braking a little bit early." That's the long version of what he said.
Sounds like Gruchelski has been having some adventures as well. We've got a replay of him getting very loose, as we did see it up a bit, and he had to really catch that car through the inner loop. Thankfully, still running, but now he's about 8/10 down from Olsen. As meanwhile, we continue to watch Castile lead Booth, and Booth not passing him quite yet, so those cold tires not hurting the 333 too much at this stage.
Yeah, he's holding on to it. Looks like he's starting to get some heat in these tires. Joey, how do you find these tires with the new model in iRacing? Does it feel more natural, more real to you the way they warm up, or do you think they still have a little more work to do?
They come out with new patches and new updates every time, and I think that they get better every time. However, it's a bit like chasing a moving target, especially with new tires coming out every year. But I think that I'm pretty terrible in the sim and a pretty poor judgment of that. However, these sim kids, as I refer to them, they seem to get up to speed immediately on the new stuff.
Yeah, now how is it that guys like us that race in real life come over to the sim and we're just like perpetually mid-pack? I'll be at the front of whatever class I'm in real life, but put me in a sim, oh man, it is tough.
Well, I have real fast. I have respect for a lot of these racers out here, and Gruchelski is all over the back of Olsen. He's going to make another slipstream attempt down into the bus stop right now, side by side for the lead. Doesn't make the move, but Michael, I think that we're used to feel of a race car, and we don't have the feel in the sim, and it's just a totally different thing.
I was just going to say, I've perpetually been teasing my own dad because he obviously grew up driving real cars more, but I'm always faster than him in the sim because I grew up on the simulators. So
I was lucky to spend time this weekend in a GT3 out at COTA. So yeah, the feel definitely makes a difference. I'm actually faster at COTA in a real GT3 than I am on the sim. Other tracks, not quite the same.
Battle for the lead, carrying on. Olsen in the purple machine, you see leading the number 69 of Nate Gruchelski. Amazingly, despite all the tussles that they've had so far, Carter Cundy is still about 3 seconds back. There he is in the background. So he's got at least visual on them at sometimes around the track, but he's going to have to get closer to really capitalize if they keep fighting like this. And we've now officially passed the halfway point of this race, and it has been a wild one in the prototypes, with the drivers we thought maybe would be major players swapping around constantly.
And I'm trying to keep an eye here on our AM leader in the GT class. That's Corey Ensing. He has been holding on to that first position, even with a couple of nose-to-tail contact here and there. But he's actually closing down on Bradley Haley, making a very nice run of it. And yeah, here he is right here on camera for you. He is that green and black car that you're seeing there. That car is moving quite well. I suspect he may get moved into the pro class for the next season.
Oh, that was a late dive from all of them to go by Bradley Haley, who's currently 9th in the GT Pros, but great heads up by him. He's a veteran in this series. He kind of probably expected that to happen. But it was side by side into the bus stop once again between Gruchelski and Olsen, and Gruchelski kicked up the dirt there coming off the heel, or the toe of the boot there, pushing the limits of this track every chance he can.
It has been a fantastic battle, and I really do believe if Gruchelski gets around Olsen, it'll be the same thing. This is what the racing at this racetrack produces. It's just great draft battles, and when one car has the slipstream, it's got to benefit, but it's so tough to get it done before the bus stop.
Just about the right length to give us some action. Just flashing lights here at Ryan Robertson And he sees him coming. He wants to come down to the apex, but he leaves just about a car's width. Again, that experience showing through these drivers who've been here for a while and knowing exactly where to put it.
And this might be the opportunity for Gruchelski. He's far enough back to get a pretty good slingshot here. He might have the opportunity. You see Olsen defends to the inside one more time.
Will it be a repeat of what we saw last time? Pretty much.
He's on him through the carousel, though. Usually Nathan Olsen really pulls it out. It seems like Gruchelski is starting to turn up the heat.
We could hear a little fuel saving as well. So not only is he trying to pressurize him, but he's trying to maybe see if he can out-strategize Nathan Olsen. We'll see if it works or not, as they're going to lap Chris Sherburne. So this will be the first of the prototypes to be lapped. Well, other than Tinsey, Fisher, and Houston, who unfortunately had issues earlier on. So they are multiple laps down, I believe, from the leaders. And a bit of a different situation. But for these guys, they managed to get by cleanly, thankfully. But it's starting to get thick and fast once again with the GT Pros. Young Park now hanging off to the right-hand side of the track, but he needs every inch of it here through the penultimate turn. And unfortunately, Gruchelski is going to get slowed up. And that was Nathan Jew. That was our second place in the points in the Pro class. Oh. And he's stuck. He can't go anywhere because he has to look. Oh, my goodness. That's a ton of cars trying to go by. Can he find? No, just cannot get an opening.
Yeah, and he's having to be predictable. So as soon as he starts moving, he's no longer predictable. So good sportsmanship on his part by just standing there and letting people get around him and then finding that gap and jumping back into it and trying to get back into the race.
That's going to hurt even more. We've got a replay, and I think he did this to himself. Yeah, it just got loose early.
Yeah, that rear end came around. Having that motor back there, you got to make good use of those giant tires in the back.
So this puts him, oh my goodness, 15th in the GTs. I don't know where that is in class. Probably around 10th or so in his class. But Ross Booth running second. He's our leader in the points that Jew's trying to chase. So it's not looking good for Nathan today. He's probably going to want to take some sort of drop round for this one. And we're hearing 11th in class right now for that number 420 car. Sounds like the LMP2 mid-pack, though, has been a bit of a wild ride.
Yeah, it's really been a battle for the 5th place spot between Paul Gibson, David Shutt, and Mo Islam. And it's been going on for a handful of laps, Joe. One lap, Paul's leading the train. The next lap, Mo was leading the train. It just depends on where you catch the GT cars. As you see David Shutt get blocked up huge from a GT car, and that opens the door for Mo Islam behind him.
Yeah, Gibson trying to scamper away with every opportunity he can. Shutt's has been in the wars and has certainly not been making friends with everybody out there. You can imagine Scott Angelo felt quite aggrieved with their incident. Wouldn't be surprised if it sees Stewart investigations after the race, as they do check out those incidents. And another big look from Gruchelski does not produce the lead for the number 69. Olsen continuing to punch the hole in the air, though. Will we see the results of what's been happening here once they take their pit stops, maybe in about 10 or 11 more minutes?
That's actually where I think we're going to see a lot of that action, Joe, is pit stop strategy, because these two have been inseparable since they got clear of the rest of the LMP2 field. And to make a little light of the David Shutt situation, you mentioned he's not making very many friends. I believe it was last race, got protested in the GT field, and he's here in the LMP2s now.
Just can't make friends anywhere, I guess, as he continues to lead Mo Islam. Mo not having as productive of a day as we saw at Montreal, unfortunately, hopping just across the border here to New York, just only into 7th, trying to take that 6th spot away and catch back up as well to Paul Gibson in front of them. The BMW of Cast going to stay off to the side in the marbles, unfortunately, there through turn 9. But thankfully, in a Porsche, rather, staying out of the way. And thankfully does not send it into the wall and all that gunk on the circuit. But still too early for the pit stops to take place now. but we should see them pretty soon, as more flashes of the lights tells you these drivers are in no way looking to sit around, especially as the traffic just gets frantic out there. In fact, 3 wide maybe. Shirazi involved in this, and unfortunately this is going to plug up Islam.
Definitely got held up big, and another car that had a huge moment was actually our leader going up through the S's there, Joe. He got held up by a GT car and had to get hard on the brakes. Same thing with Gruchelski. Nothing changes, but man, what a moment for our leaders.
I don't blame Shirazi for causing a bit of problems there. He's trying to catch up to Booth and Castile. It's about 4.5 seconds, so it's not out of the question. But look at these two. If they start fighting, he could start catching time hand over fist. And on top of it, well, there's the other battle we were just watching as they have Gibson and Shutt kind of take the inside line away from them through the toe of the boot and carry on their merry way. But Castile has had things completely switched around. He was the one riding behind Booth. Is Booth kind of repaying the favor here now?
Yeah, I think Booth is doing a little bit of that lift and coast action that he saw Castile doing earlier, at least in that first stint. He's trying to save some fuel now, and just looking at these opportunities, I see great chances for him to tuck in behind an LMP car and make a pass, but he's not taking it. I think he's very happy where he is with 36 minutes left to go in this race. There's plenty of time with these two being absolutely neck and neck, nose to tail here.
Okay, so here's a question then, Michael. If you're Castile and you want to get tricky, would it make sense for him to try and pit early, do a short middle stint, and deny Booth being able to ride his coattails like that?
It kind of depends on traffic, and quite honestly, and I think Joey will back me up on this one, I'm waiting to hear Trevor in my ear, because we had the same guy at the same team. I'm waiting for Trevor in my ear to go, let's go ahead and box this lap, box.
Yeah, well, I think more importantly, too, extra fuel in the sim definitely is negative for your lap time, and the more you can run the car empty, the better off you are.
And we've seen that traditionally. Most drivers tend to run long stints and have a short final stint. In most GT races on iRacing tends to be the optimal strategy. But it all depends on if Castile feels like if he can pull a blinder, or if he feels like it's worth just sitting it out and hoping he can stick with Booth through the pit stops as they come out of the toe of the boot once again. We're up to lap 31 of this race now. They actually could pit from here and make it to the end easily, so there's nothing stopping them, but it does seem to implicate that the 333 just wants to go as long as he can, and that was a very wide run there from Ross Booth, who's making sure to use up all of the track with that new paved runoff out of the heel of the boot. Oh, things
He
getting
might be
close.
trying to save a little bit of fuel on that, too.
We got to go to Gruchelski. We got to go to Gruchelski and Olsen. They're side by side once again. And the 69, I think, maybe just trying to see if he can force Olsen into a mistake, because he's still not really attacking hard, Joey. He's just kind of pulling alongside him, then braking early.
He's doing the same exact thing every single lap, and I know I've referred to it before, but he's setting him up for the old Russ Wheeler cold trickle last lap, because he's doing the same exact thing.
Did you watch that movie recently? I feel like in the last 2 weeks I've heard 3 or 4 mentions of that film from you.
I'm a bit of a cinephile. I know my movies.
All right. Okay, I'll keep that in mind as we watch them now through the heel of the boot, and Gruchelski and Olsen have now pulled to about 4.3 seconds ahead of Kundinger, so that is a gap that has been growing. It was down to nearly 3 not long ago. They seem to have the legs underneath them, but as we mentioned, it is typically a smaller window for the LMP2s to try and take their fuel. And speak of the devil, Gruchelski's pitting now.
We'll have to see if this pays off for him, if Nathan Olsen, how long he can stretch it. But when you're the leader here, it's most important, don't screw this up. Stop on your marks.
Yeah, I think that's going to be the critical thing here, and hope that the traffic plays nice once he comes out, because that could give him an advantage. We see such a huge fluctuation in lap times when they have to lap this traffic, and he did hit his marks.
Well, and it's great that you bring that up because I'm watching our leader, Nathan Olson, and he was able to climb up through the first half of this track pretty cleanly, but got a few GT cars he's going to have to deal with now going into the boot.
Yeah, this is not what Olson wants. If he gets held up at the wrong time, it could cause a little bit of track position for his rival. Obviously, that doesn't mean everything in this series, but not something you want to give up this late in the race. And as they climb the hill, once again, elevation change, such a huge feature at this track. I don't think it's talked about enough because it doesn't have a lot of blind crests, but you go up and down a ton of hills here.
Michael, you can speak on that.
Yeah, it's funny. So I've done some training with various constabulary agencies in New York, and a lot of times this track is used for high speed for somewhat blind runs, because when you're going up through those S's, you really can't see much. So it is a little bit blind, but it's not a blind crest. But man, I'm telling you, you get the hammer down, you run up through those S's, you know you are climbing a hill, especially when you're in that lower class car. Now, here we're looking at GT3s. They got a lot of power. But I can tell you, driving an ST car or driving a touring car A or touring car B even, wow, it feels like you're actually slowing down going up that hill.
Yeah, exactly. I'm sure the Formula Vs here in iRacing probably lose speed as they climb up there. But right now, back to the lead in the GT3s, Castile versus Booth. Is Shirazi actually gaining? Yeah, Shirazi's down to 3.3 seconds. Wasn't that up to about 4.5 before?
Yeah, we mentioned it before. It was about 4.5, and he's been taking advantage of the traffic that has not done well with Booth and Castile. That being said, I think there was a mistake. Ross Booth is back in front. Booth has gotten around Castile. I don't know how he did that. I think there may have been a little bit of a tail wiggle coming out of there, out of that final corner.
We need a replay on Castile off of the final turn. He fishtailed and had to save it. In fact, I think he got a little bit of the wall. We'll see if we can pull that up soon. Well, we've got it right now, it looks like. Wasn't sure if we'd have a battle going. But this one mistake, this could be race deciding. Oh, and yeah, that was a big slap on the left-hand side.
Yeah, but he is fighting back. If we can get back to live here, they're going around the carousel right now. Look, he has closed this right back up. There was a big gap, but now we're heading down into the boot and under braking. He's closing this up nicely. Right now, they are looking at about 6/10, right around 6 to 7/10. It's not going to stay there for long because remember, we're playing that fuel game here too.
Here's hoping Castile's pace is not hurt by that contact, and he'll be able to hold on to Ross Booth. Still has the pit stop, which might help him repair a bit of it as well.
And Shirazi down to 2.1 seconds off the tail of Castile. He is on fire right now.
I think that little mistake certainly helped, as it certainly put Ross Booth offline, trying to avoid running into that sliding Porsche. So it all is working out well for the 66. 29 minutes left to go now, having to overtake some of the slower GT traffic, and that separated Castile by a good chunk. Booth is now almost a second ahead.
Yeah, and Shirazi makes his dive into the pits between Castile and Booth. Like you said, it's right about a second. So maybe that damage is a little more than it looked like. It looked like he just kind of kissed the wall a little bit, but you get too much toe in on that rear tire, and that'll negatively affect the way you can put the power down.
So, bad news for fans of Gruchelski as we get another of our drivers pitting in. Actually, that's Olson. Olson's last two laps, 34s, whereas Gruchelski ran a 36.
And just visually, Joe, I've been watching the two. It seems like Gruchelski has been getting held up more in traffic, but I worry for Nathan Olson because he locked it up huge going into pit road, and the last car we saw that got a black flag.
Well, let me see here. Olson does not have a black flag, so he's clear.
Good.
He made it through, and That means that Carter Kundinger inherits the lead once again. He had it a little bit earlier, but this time, unfortunately, he's going to have to come in and take a pit stop unless we get a big change around it. Not expecting him to wind up in the lead. So Olsen versus Gruchelski is what we need to be worried about in that pit stop battle, because Olsen is actually moving already. Oh my goodness. Olsen is absolutely going to drop Gruchelski like a rock. I think that's because Nate had to take... Well, he had a long stop, a very long stop. 10 seconds longer than normal, it looks like.
Yeah, this is a much longer stop. It's not even close coming out of pit road anymore.
Is it a bad fuel calc, maybe?
Possibly. I mean, Nate did, I believe his first pit stop was a shorter one for him, but I didn't think it would be this much longer on the second one. Only other thing I can think is he maybe had a little bit of damage that he had to repair.
That's a possibility as well. I know that they've been racing hard, racing close, and certainly possible. And because the gap wouldn't have opened up this much just based off of the traffic.
Yeah, exactly. So something has happened that has really put him on the back foot and caused him that long stop. So that might actually mean that Carter Kundinger might come out in second place here once he takes his pit stop. In fact, I wonder if Billy Smith is close enough. No, I think Billy Smith will probably wind up behind him, it looks like.
I think it'll be very close for Billy because it looks like Gruchelski lost roughly 15 seconds or so. And that's right about where he would be placed if both Carter and Billy came in this lap and at least had an equal stop.
And we should see them coming in pretty soon. I'm guessing, based on what we witnessed before, maybe the longest they can go is about 20 minutes left on the clock. So just a couple more laps. It takes quite a while to get around here. Even in the prototypes, it's a minute 30-some to circulate around this place. And that's with so much of it being full throttle as he goes by Andrew Lunsford down in the AM category. We haven't talked about those AMs a whole lot. I can tell you that Ensing is still leading by a pretty safe gap over Luke Schmidt up in that GT AM category.
Yeah, looking like about 6 seconds. And Corey Ensing has been battling with the pro class drivers. He is absolutely holding his own. In that class, if you didn't call it pro and AM, he would be 8th in class. But right now, he's sitting first as the AM class and doing a beautiful job of it. He's got a huge gap back to Luke Schmidt behind him.
Saw someone ducking in a pit lane. That was Paul Gibson, it looks like. And I think we also had the likes of Sean Reese pitting in from the AM class. So a couple more cars taking their final stops and then going to be getting back out to go. But we still need Carter Kundinger, Billy Smith, David Shutt. They all still need to pit. Gibson was kind of competing with guys like Shutt, so need to keep an eye on him. Mo Islam's taken his stop, and I think Gibson was near him as well. So this could be significant as we keep watching our GT category drivers run through the bus stop here. Bradley Haley versus Corey Ensing, as we were talking about earlier, with Eric Thomas just in front of the pair of them, but they're going to get interrupted. That is, in fact, David Shutt that is splitting them.
David Shutt is yet to do his pit stop, working lap 20 of this fuel stint right now and just getting around these GT cars, and he's going to be having to come down pit road. And Joe, I've been watching, we saw Olsen and Gruchelski stop much earlier, and we see some of these LMP2 cars stretch it. I wonder if the middle stint they chose to short fill that one, and we're just seeing it kind of play out now on the racetrack.
Yeah, that could be a good point. By the way, Carter Kundinger, our current leader, is pitting in. Let's see if Smith follows him. No, he does not. So Billy Smith inherits the lead. And Kundinger, will he come out in P2? Olsen is currently our highest driver to have stopped naturally. Oh, we haven't reported on it, but Kopkar also took his pit stop. So he's done, and he is ahead of Gruchelski.
I think Nikhil still has to pit. I see him working lap 19 of the stint.
Yeah.
If I remember, he had that black flag early on for speeding in pit lane that he's still trying to overcome.
Sorry, I looked at the wrong stat there on my timing sheet. So you're right, he hasn't stopped yet. Apologies for that. Kundinger just going now as Olsen is by. Kopkar goes by, but he needs service. And Gruchelski is not even close. So Carter Kundinger indeed should wind up our second place driver. And in fact, the gap between himself and Olsen is about 5 seconds. So not huge, but he'll need a little luck on his side, I imagine, to run him down.
Well, and I'm seeing Gruchelski is 14 seconds behind Carter right now. That would put Billy Smith in front of Gruchelski.
Wow. Wow, that unraveled in a big way. Speaking of Billy Smith here, been in this series a long time and still having to kind of dip and dodge his way around those GT cars, but continuing to lead this race. Does he pit in this time? Still need himself and a few more. And yes, indeed, he's coming in.
I was going to say, I've seen him stretch it to 22, maybe one more lap, but here comes 901. Billy Smith, just hit your marks and get back out on the racetrack. You got a shot for a podium still.
So looking for his pit, should be in. Ooh, Dominic Dornenberg is going to carry on and not pit in this time. So he actually might be our leader, which is not something we get to say very often. Might as well give him a little bit of love here on the screen in that 913 machine. Looks like David Schutt pitted, and Nathan Olsen will re-inherit second place until we get Dornenberg into the pits. So 21 minutes left to go, and just about have most of our prototypes done with the stops. Boy, that was a lot of curb there from Dornenberg.
And to report, Billy Smith is rolling. He's going up the S's right now, and he is in front of Gruchelski. So that pit stop, terrible for that 69 car.
It was looking pretty good for a moment there for Nate, but unfortunately, it looks like he's not going to be able to do much to try and run down Olsen at this stage. Olsen probably mostly concerned with Billy Smith, and considering it's about 16 seconds between them, Nathan's sitting pretty and is going to continue his run of podiums here, and in fact is going to add to his impressive tally of wins this season.
I'm pretty impressed, Joe, that this race has actually calmed down, which is very odd for this car and track combo, and also Autobahn. I know that we have racing all over, but been relatively easy going.
Olsen looking at his fourth win, I believe, here, if he brings this one home. Meanwhile, Dornenberg finally comes in, needing that splash to get to the finish. Whoa, big accident happening on pit entry. Couple cars getting involved. That might have been Corey Ensing. Eric Thomas was a part of that.
Yeah, those guys were close, and I think Ensing was just trying to hold on to the back of him. He wanted to hold on to the lead of the AM class, but it looks like Thomas... listening over the radio, Ensing did not know that Thomas was pitting. So as they come around here, just a little bit of a tag, not too much damage on the front of one of those BMWs, but the other one, oh, that is not a good place to be.
And Ensing's already being caught by Luke Schmidt very quickly. There's one more look at it, and that's not the first time we've seen sort of incidents like that tonight. Who was that ran into him? Was that Bidwell? Yeah, I think that was Bidwell in the red and white.
Yeah, and it's tough here. And Joey can tell you, just as he mentioned earlier, about having to really commit to that pit entry. You have to place the car in a way that you know the car in front of you is making that commitment to pit. They are going to be off pace.
Oh, no.
Because otherwise, that's not good. Don't want to get those tires on the grass like that.
Bidwell's damaged. He's been trying to stay out of the way of everyone, and kind of bit him there. So he's got something wrong, I think, from the hit that he had. As we come back to some of our prototypes out of the heel of the boot, This is Gruchelski and Gibson actually now fighting. No, and almost a side swipe as they go by Shane Hunter. I think they got away with it, but it was mighty close. Gibson thinking maybe he could snatch 4th place away here.
Gibson has found some speed late in the run. It took him all race to get going, but here we are, less than 20 minutes, and the number 31 has shown some good lap time, climbing up all over the back of Nate Gruchelski. And remember, Gruchelski was out there battling for the lead, and big blink out of there, and here they got to go squeeze through this GT traffic. This is an opportunity for Gibson.
He's got a fantastic run, and he's going to get the right-hand side. In fact, he's going to be fully clear by the time they get to the braking up into the inner loop. I heard a little bit from Gruchelski over the radio. Couldn't quite make out what exactly he was saying there. But yes, Gibson up into 4th. Can he catch Billy Smith, make it a podium? He's going to have to cut down 6 seconds to do so.
I think that he could do it. That's a lot of time that we look at on the Delta right here, but give a GT car in a bad spot and that can evaporate very fast.
Gruchelski's still with it as they exit the toe of the boot, climb up the hill. So he's not going to give up easily. For those wondering, I've been keeping an eye on Booth and Castile. Castile's about 2.3 seconds back from Ross Booth, and neither of them have pitted yet. Really going wide there did Nate, as he had to use some of the paved runoff out of the heel of the boot. Another of our Audis just in front, Bradley Haley, would like to not be involved in any more craziness here today, and thankfully he's able to let them go cleanly.
And I'm checking Gruchelski's car. I think he's got a little bit of damage, especially on the front end and maybe the front left of the car, because his pace doesn't seem to be what it was earlier.
Yeah, there they get by Andrew Lunsford now. This is where he wants to get that slipstream, especially if he has damage on that machine. Chad Nobles has plenty of space to let them through, hopefully, if they have enough straightaway. Yes, indeed. They're going to be able to sneak by, and nobody really gets hurt too much by that one. Though it did help Nate close up on Paul once again into the braking of the inner loop. I haven't seen any of our GT cars pit in recently. As we've mentioned earlier, they tend to like to go long, and it seems like pretty much everybody is subscribing to that philosophy today.
Yeah, just want to get a quick splash and dash at the end, as little time stationary as you can get away with. And if they took tires in that first pit stop, they are going to be good to go. They'll be able to run the full hour and not have too much of an issue with tire drag.
Checking back in, is this Ensing that we're looking at here? No. This is Shirazi
coming up on Thomas. He has been closing this up. He was about 0.6 of a second, I want to say 2 laps ago, and he has just been closing this up little by little. Traffic coming up here and there, getting in the way, but this time it looks like it might help him if he's able to tuck it. Yeah, there you go. Tuck in right underneath him. Gets him even closer. He's right at 0.3, backs off a little bit, maybe missed his brake point a little bit, but look at that, coming out of that corner. He closes it up to 1.5. He is on to charge right now.
Saw a couple, looks like Haley and Hunter both pitted in that time. Oh, and there it is again. I wondered. Thomas wanted to pit in. He survived it, though, after a wild slide coming out of the final corner. And Shirazi, I don't think he hit the wall as well, but boy, that had to scare the pair of them.
Absolutely. And now this is another one of those things that's a difference between real life racing and sim racing. When you're coming up to this pit entry here, I know that I can look through the window of the car in front of me and I can see the driver in front of me hold up a fist. He's not being angry with me. He's telling me he's going into the pits, so I can react appropriately and not punt him like that.
Yeah.
Well, and actually, to speak on that point, we have that yellow line all the way around the previous corner, and The whole idea is that, yes, you can cross that yellow line, but if you want to designate that you're coming to pit road, get your car over there, because that shows everyone behind you, hey, I'm coming to pit road, be aware I'm going to be off pace.
Absolutely. And this did slow up Johan Shirazi a little bit and allow Young Park to catch up to him. So that's now a battle for the 8th position. In the GTs, I think that's actually for 6th, though, in GT Pro specifically, between the pair of them. And I just heard Corey Ensing actually announce that he is also pitting in. So there's our AM leader, who's recovered well from his crazy incident on pit entry. Luke Schmidt fell back from him to about 2 seconds.
And Gruchelski just squeezed by Gibson. He got the draft going up the S's and was able to make the pass around the outside of the bus stop and put Gruchelski back up to position number 4.
Love that never say die attitude. So Nate getting it back on him, making sure that this is a fight to the finish between them. Nate, having pit 12 laps ago, was the earliest one to come in. In fact, he might have been on the outer edge of that fuel strategy there in that number 69 machine. Hopefully he doesn't cut it too short here at the end, since it is timed and we sometimes wind up with an extra lap. This is a very long lap at this track. You do not want to have to try and make extra fuel here.
No, especially trying to climb up the S's, and most importantly, if you run out of fuel halfway through the lap, you have to climb up to start finish. You're never going to make it. Oh, Gruchelski held up huge by a GT car. Gibson's not quite close enough to capitalize.
That was Robert Rattray, actually, and our winner from last round. Not looking like he's going to be able to repeat his feat here today. In fact, I need to check. I think Luke Schmidt has, or no, it was Corey Ensing. Corey Ensing has been leading this. Has Corey Ensing won this season? Checking the stats here.
I don't think he has, but I've been known to be wrong, and I always own it because it happens very often.
He won Sebring, so yes.
Of course he did.
It's going to be hard to get more non-repeat winners with how many we've had so far. So I was kind of curious if that stat's going to continue to increase. And it looks like right now, no, but you never know. Corey has taken his pit stop. Luke Schmidt is actually just in. He was the AM leader, but is going to hand that over now that he's going to finish his out.
Yeah, he took the AM lead when our previous leader Ensing had gone into the pits. Now it looks like it's probably going to go back. Luke Schmidt is still stationary in his pit stall, just started moving as we take a look back at this nice wide run there as we watch the LMP2 class try to get to the end of this race.
Yeah, that seems to be difficult in its own right. Impressively, though, we have only lost Matthew Gosch, Sheldon Rosenbaum, Jimbo Pfeiffer, Thomas Fisher, Peter Houston, Nicholas Davis, and Cameron Bidwell. We still have 25 cars running out of 38 cars running out of 45 starters.
And to speak on that point, Robert Tinsey, our original pole sitter, is still out there. He had that incident lap 1, and then he got caught up as an innocent bystander later in the race. But he's still out there doing laps, even though he's a handful of laps down, still out there.
Ooh, 2 leaders in the GT Pros pit in at the same time, Booth and Castile. But they had separated a fair bit before they popped into pit lane. So there is, and already taken off, that is both of them at just about the same time. And it was so much shorter for Castile, a lot shorter, honestly.
Yeah, I don't think he took any time to repair whatever was wrong with that car because he was holding on. Oh, and was that over the line there?
It was close.
Whew. I know if I'm that close and I've touched the line, I'm probably going to see at least a message from the stewards to not do that again.
I went and looked, and I think he's going to be safe on it. And yeah, I don't see a black flag next to it. That's usually immediate, I'm pretty sure. So I think Booth managed to just stay within it, but he was using all that he could and not leaving anything to chance here.
Joey, what's the rule on that for us if we're in an IMSA race? Do we get it if we cross the line or if we just touch it?
Just don't test it. Just there's not
Good
enough
advice.
big
I
gains.
love that. Yes, exactly. You're not gaining anything. Don't do it.
And unfortunately for Gruchelski, he just smacked the wall out of the final corner once again. Oh, but a big accident ahead of him. We just missed it on screen. Gibson got into the back of Chris Pies. They're going to go 3 wide, and it looks like Gruchelski will find his way through. It has gone awry in this battle for 4th place in the prototypes for both cars in completely different ways.
Hey, yeah, we got to get a replay of that from Gruchelski's point of view, because he was just sitting there and the GT car kind of was in the middle of the road. I think Gibson looked like he was going to go right, then decided he was going to go left, and the GT car was just kind of smack in the middle.
So Nate now potentially with a bit of new damage on the car, and same thing with Gibson, but the track position goes back to Nate because he had recently lost that spot. So here we go. This looks like just after the contact there for Gibson going up through the S's.
Yeah, and the Gruchelski and Gibson had been battling it out. Here we go. Here it happens.
Yeah, so there. Yeah, okay. We wanted to watch Gibson. Makes the wrong decision there, and you need to make those decisions fast. Thankfully, it didn't spin out either car, but just split second, and the gap opened enough for Gruchelski to blast past.
That's all you need, especially at that super fast section of the racetrack, and Paul Gibson definitely has damage on the front end of his number 31 car.
Oh, that's going to be difficult. Yeah, it looks like he's struggling a little bit here. We'll get a real test of it down the back stretch as Gruchelski already passed the line 164 miles an hour, whereas Paul Gibson passed that line. He was doing about comparable speed, it looks like, so maybe he got away with it.
Well, I think that Gruchelski is nursing a little bit of damage as well, so I think they kind of have evened themselves out in terms of how much they're losing per lap. But one thing's for sure, Mo Islam and David Schutt, that battle is still raging on as well.
And they are actually not that far behind Paul Gibson. So if they don't fight each other too much, I wonder if they could actually catch up to that battle and run them down. If those two are slightly slow, they've got 5 minutes, so it's going to be precious little time to run them down, but it's only 3 seconds, and you never know.
Well, especially with what we saw with the GT car. I mean, that is a handful of seconds gone just like that, and with 5 minutes left, don't put anything off the table as Mo Islam has a huge slide. Schutt's going to take it 2 wide here through one of these final sweepers and claim this position back up to 6th.
Love how fierce these guys fight all the way to the checkered flag, even for mid-pack positions. Now, as much as I would love to follow this, Ross Booth, who has been pretty dominant this season, looks like he's not going to be able to run away with it so easily here today. There is Castile. He has reeled him back in, and the race is on.
This was up to about 7, almost 8 tenths of a second earlier in this lap. Now look how much Booth is having to fight now. He's going to have to really kick it up if he wants to stay ahead of Castile. Castile is he's turned up the wick here. It looked like he was maybe feigning a little bit of an issue earlier, but wow, he is absolutely right there on his tail and making a great run for it.
Also, that's our leader behind them. That is Nathan Olson. Well, now between them, not behind them. So they're not going to get an extra lap here, since this time by should be 3 to go. As Nathan Olson crosses, and Booth and Castile 11 seconds ahead of Robert Cast, who we haven't talked about since very early in this race. Going to get a quiet third, most likely, as if he can just bring it home. But the battle for the lead in the GT Pros. Oh, who's this? The 64.
Chad Nobles.
Yeah, he just got lapped by our AM leader, Corey Ensing.
No,
Don't do that, no! Oh, we were just talking about this earlier. You've got to hold position.
Eric Thomas tried his hardest to stay out of it, and no, he's going to nose it into the tires. Car too damaged. Oh, my goodness. Does he have to take a tow? Yeah, engine smoking. Day over for the 18 car. 3.5 minutes from the finish.
And jumping in, I can't blame the car parked too much in the middle of the racetrack. We can't turn our head in the simulator as much as you'd like to, and you got to get going. You can't just stay in the middle of the racetrack.
Yeah, it's just so frustrating when you see it happen, and especially when it happens to you. A little look to the inside there, and in fact, he manages to get him off the apex. Yes, he does. It's a drag race, and he's going to have the inside. Castile, is he going to be able to finish the job? Coming through the heel of the boot, giving just enough space as they come down to the braking zone. He's a little farther into the corner, and he successfully slides in front of that 03.
Yep, that's going to be Castile taking your lead back. He is once again back at the front of this GT class. Ross Booth, I think he had just a little bit of an issue, maybe a little bit too late on the brakes or not quite enough brake going in there. Castile puts the nose in there and takes it over.
Not sure that this is going to bother him too much since his real fight is against Nathan Jew. We come back to the fight down in between Shutt and Islam. Shutt shuts the door, and Islam has nothing he can do into turn 9, but it's starting to look way more frantic between them, the weaving back and forth trying to find an opening.
They swapped positions a couple times, and it's funny you say that because I'm pretty sure David has a sticker on his car that says "Door Shut Services."
I love it. Just embracing it, and that looks like Islam gets held up there into the 90. But between these two, did Booth get by Castile?
Yeah,
how did he get
back around?
Castile, I think, got a slowdown penalty. He went wide at the first corner.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, he went pretty wide on that first corner, trying to hold on to that position. And when he got too far out there, you can get just a little bit too far. And he pushed that envelope a tiny bit more than he needed to.
Wow. Is that race over between them? It took him a while to catch up, and it was such a brilliant move to make that overtake. Well, maybe it's not over. He's within 0.9 of a second. But it's going to take...
That's still draft range. That's good draft range, and this is a draft track. If you've got 0.9 going down into that... and we've got a white flag. This is going to be our last lap. Last chance to do something.
Yeah, that's what I was wondering about, because he's going to have to get on it and have a phenomenal lap, will Wayne Castile. It's not impossible, but it's going to have to be decisive for him.
Yeah, we're looking at 0.6 now as they're coming around for their final chance to see this white flag. Now, they're coming up. This will be interesting. It's a 3 Porsche train here, because we've got a lap, I guess almost a lap car here, about to be, he's just in range. So that's going to give Booth enough of a pull, enough of a hole in the air to be able to extend this gap. But look at Castile. Castile's not having any of it. He is under 0.2 of a second. He has got quite the run here. We're going to go defensive to the inside as Booth just tries to put the nose out to the outside. Reposition's going to go too wide into it. Just tucks right back in behind him. Now the only chance he's got is to work his way back up there and make the pass in the boot.
That could have been his one good shot. We'll see if he gets another bite at the apple as the traffic, there's cars battling behind them. That may open the door. They're going to try and use them actually as a pick with each other, as I think that was Gibson who unfortunately got holed up between them. And that's going to leave it open just a little bit as he tries to look inside, but again, the door is shut. But we got to go to Nathan Olson. He comes out of the final corner and takes another win this season in the prototypes.
Nicely done, Nathan Olson, but sorry, man, we've got a real humdinger here. Look at this going into the last bit of the boot down here. They've got a little bit of lap traffic. They go wide. Puts the power down. Now we're coming up to penultimate corner. Can he close this up? He's right about 0.4. It was as close as 2 as they got into the boot, but nope. I think it's going to be pretty much done and dusted at this point. When we get into the final corner, putting down the power, Ross Booth coming out of there all the way up against the wall, coming down close, 0.2 of a second at the finish line. Wayne Castile in second.
Unbelievable race there for the pros all the way to the end. By the way, Corey Ensing still leading, and it's about 3 seconds for him. Luke Schmidt could still steal it away from him, but all Corey has to do is wrap it up from here. Oh, he's got some lap traffic in front of him, and I think he's trying to take it as safe as possible with Andrew Lunsford in front of him. But Corey Ensing going to be the second driver this season of the AMS to finally get 2 wins, and he has earned this one. It wasn't a flawless race, had some scares out there, but Corey Ensing is your victor at Watkins Glen in the GT AMS. So that's going to take us to the results, and Nathan Olson, who started from 11th position, is going to take the victory. Carter Kundinger was second behind him. To Carter's credit, he was 3.5 seconds behind at the line, so he kept him honest. Billy Smith got himself a 3rd place and a nice podium, and then Nate Gruchelski started from the front row, and then a mysteriously long stop, maybe some damage that he had to repair, cost him. He only managed 4th. He fought hard with Paul Gibson in the end, as David Shutt was 6th and Mo Islam was 7th. And it's Dominic Dornenberg in P8 and Nikhil Kopkar in 9th. Lee Peterson was the last one on the lead lap of the prototypes. He was P10. Eddie Layton finished 11th. Chris Sherburne was 12th, and then Robert Tinsey was 18th overall. He didn't even make it by all of the GT cars, but he wound up 13th in the prototypes. Houston and Fisher were behind him as DNFs in those prototype classes. Michael, what about the GTs?
Well, Ross Booth, wow, just pulling it out there at the end. Got lucky with Wayne Castile, who finished second, going wide on that penultimate lap, but almost brought it back. Little bit back from them. Robert Cass, Johan Shirazi put up a good fight, bringing it in there. Young Park right behind him. Bradley Haley. And then we come to the first of our AM class, Corey Ensing, making a beautiful finish there and just rocking it beautifully. So then Luke Schmidt is going to be P2 in that AM class with Shane Hunter, the last step on the podium. Chris Pies having a little bit of trouble with traffic going on. Speaking of trouble, Nathan Jew, not the greatest race for him. A little bit of unfortunate contact here and there. Tommy Ryan after that. Robert Rattray was only able to bring it in 4th place today. A little surprising. Expected a little more out of him, but maybe this track just didn't speak to him. Nick Olis right behind him. Dale Green, Patrick McDaniel, and Trent Brown round out your top 30.
There in the 31st spot, Andrew Lunsford, followed up with Jason Iverson, Scott Angelo, and then Ryan Robertson, first car, a couple laps down. Sean Reese, and then Eric Thomas, also a few laps down. Chad Nobles, Franco Margarello, which we saw had the problems earlier there in turn 1. Cam Bidwell, Jimbo Pfeiffer, Sheldon Rosenbaum, and Matt Gosh round out all of the GT cars that saw some action today.
Speaking of seeing action, Carter Kundinger briefly saw the lead up at the front, but it was a bit of musical chairs up there for the driver that wound up in P2, as we hopefully will be taking a bit of a chat with him here in a second. There we go. We've got Carter with us. Carter, you had a taste of the top spot there in this race, but it seemed like Nathan's pace today was just a little too much.
Yeah, he really just had that little bit over me. It kind of took me by surprise when he qualified so far back. I honestly was like, okay, maybe he's not as fast as he normally is here. And then, once I had my little, I don't know if you guys caught my little incident with Sean Reese where it lost me a couple seconds. All of a sudden, I saw him on my relative, and I knew it was going to be hard to stay in front of him. So just unfortunate. I think. I made a bunch of mistakes on my end that I don't normally make, and just really some bad luck with traffic. It felt like tonight was kind of what put me behind him at the end.
I can't think you can sell yourself too short, because another valuable second place will certainly help you in this situation. And also, for what it's worth, I mean, Nathan and how quick he is, you were only 3.5 seconds behind at the end. That's got to be a little bit encouraging.
Yeah, no, it's honestly, I mean, for as bummed as I may sound, like, I do have to remember, and I do have to, tell myself, hey, second place for a double points round is pretty good. It's just what I guess Watkins is just one of those tracks in the leagues that I've done where I've been really good at finishing second or third and just inches away from that top step. So, just that little itch that I had today, didn't really have the greatest of qualifyings. I put in my fastest lap without draft, so it was one of those I felt like as long as I had draft, I could have possibly gotten the pole there. And it was it was nice for as fast as Nathan usually is. It was nice to only be about a couple seconds behind him, and I mean we basically matched pace based on who would get the edge with traffic.
Well, and as I said, leading into the interview, you kind of had that musical chair situation up at the lead at the front. Some of that being you just surviving while others kind of trip over themselves. I have a feeling that's a skill you're going to need come next round. We're heading to Detroit.
Yes. I love street circuits, so I'm hoping to do pretty well there. I know when we have when we always go to street circuits, whether it's Detroit or Long Beach, it's always a chaotic one, so it should be fun. I'm definitely looking forward to it. By far one of my favorite tracks on the schedule. We'll see if we can find the top step there. So give or take a few people, maybe take a few licks of the wall or whatnot. So we'll see what happens.
All right. Well, best of luck, Carter. And again, congratulations on the podium.
Yeah, thanks, guys. And just got a quick shout out to the guys at Composite Performance. Good, awesome performance tonight. Convenience in the name. So second, first place by Ross, and just overall, just a really good performance by everyone.
So that was Kundinger in second, but in first, it was Ross Booth for the GT Pros. Michael has caught up with him.
Indeed, I have, Ross. First, congratulations on quite a finish there. Wow, that was a wonderful ride.
Yeah. That was, I don't think I've ever experienced a race like that with the back and forth with Wayne there and saving the fuel early on, and then him getting that slowdown when he went all the way out and won. I was sitting behind him thinking, man, that was really far out there, and then all of a sudden he's slowing through the S's, so I knew he had to slow down to serve. But wow, that was a great race.
So the joy that you felt from that, because he had just made honestly a really good pass on you. I thought you guys played that beautifully. It was fair from both sides, but he got a really good pass on you. And then all of a sudden he goes wide. Was there this little bit of a euphoria kind of going through you? And then right after that, he was closing it down again, and did that euphoria suddenly turn into a unusually high sphincter factor?
I was really fighting the car today with I had a lot of understeer in the slow speed stuff and really ripped the left front tire off of it on the first pit cycle. So I knew I had to be better on the second one because you're not taking tires on the second stop. But I think my front tires were just absolutely gone. And I was talking to him before the race. He said he got his car set up pretty loose, so that's probably what helped him there. But yeah, I was. I want to say I had everything under control, but I definitely was sweating one there on the last lap.
Well, you put together a very nice race and got a lot of coverage from us because you two just dicing it up back and forth. It was immensely entertaining to watch. And of course, we love that and want to thank you for doing that. But I'm sure you have some people you want to thank for this win today.
Yeah, I just want to shout out to all the guys at Composite Performance. We had a heck of a qualifying run from almost every car in GT class, working well together, using the draft to get everyone a good starting position. Shout out to my teammate Robert Cass with his podium there, and Young Park also came fifth from Composite Performance. So awesome job from them. Thank you to them for all their setup work and all that. And we'll see you guys at the next one.
Indeed, we will. That was Ross Booth. And right now we have Corey Ensing, our AM class winner, and Joey has caught up with him.
Corey, congratulations on taking home the AM win in the GT3 class tonight at Watkins Glen.
Thank you. Yeah, it was an exciting race, that's for sure.
Yeah, definitely an exciting race. Well, I mean, when is Autobahn not exciting, especially when you have the LMP cars racing through? And speaking of that, did you have any close calls today with traffic?
Uh, it seemed like almost every time there would be lap car or LMP2s coming by, it would be close. I mean, Watkins Glen is it's a simple track, but it's also somehow pretty tight when it comes to lap traffic and whatever. So just trying to be predictable, but also keeping up my position and keeping up speed is pretty hard here. So.
Well, now I believe you won a race earlier in the year, and this is going to be pretty good momentum going into only what looks to be, a few races left. How are you feeling in terms of this points haul? It should move you up from 7th place up a few spots.
Yeah, I've had a kind of wild season. It seems like either I race really well or I crash out. So I'm just hoping to put in the practice. I know Belle Isle's next week or like next race, and that's one of my favorite tracks. So I'm really looking forward to that. But it's just going to be putting up these consistent finishes and trying to be out front. And I think it might set me up well for the end.
Well, and speaking of Belle Isle, you mentioned it's the next track that you guys are going to, pretty much as far different as you can get from Watkins Glen. How do you think your car, the BMW, is going to suit Detroit like it did here at Watkins Glen?
I'm not entirely sure. I mean, the thing it has going for it is it's hard to lose it. So with it being so stable, I'm not going to be worried about fighting the car as much as just fighting my competitors, as opposed to the Porsches and Audis out there that are mid-engined, especially around somewhere like Belle Isle where it's all bumpy. It's so easy to lose those cars. So just going to try and stay consistent. And I mean, it does pretty well under heavy braking zone. So yeah, just run the best I can and just try to finish clean.
Well, and last thing, Corey, before we let you go, is there anybody that you want to say hi to?
Hi, Mom. I feel like that's the normal thing to say. No, just hi to my team. I think Derek's watching, so he's been a big supporter and whatever of this. So yeah, no, I owe a lot to Tabula Rasa Esports and all them, and yeah, just gonna try and do my best when it comes to the end of the season.
Well, that was Corey Ensing, your GTAM winner. And for everybody listening at home, you always got to give the shout out, hi to my family at home. That's how it works. The old
Scott
Pruitt line.
Yeah, it was just thanks, Scott Pruitt. So we get ready to wrap up. We actually want to thank the Autobahn community for bringing us on for this season of coverage. And also thanks to the team today, Michael, Joey, and Zach. As we mentioned, the next race will be Detroit on February 20th at 9 p.m. Eastern. But until next time, race clean, race hard. We'll see you on the track.